Hello and welcome back, guys. We're now starting a part 2 of Multiverse of Midoriya, written by GiovanniPolder. You can find author's profile link in the description. Let's begin. Okay everyone, I might have F up a little. I need to inform you all about the changes from canon. First, off they are 18 and UA is a college. I just prefer making them older, so yeah, but that doesn't change anything else. After 14, when Bakugo told Izuku to kill him, it didn't get any worse, but the bullying didn't stop. Also, Izuku has not adopted Eri and Kota yet. Eri at the moment is under guardianship at UA, but with Izuku being her hero and how he cared for her, she decided to call Izuku her father. For Kota, he has Mandalay and the Pussycats as his guardians, but after Izuku saved Kota from Muscular, Izuku started befriending Kota, and it turned to Kota calling Izuku his father. Izuku has been given the okay to adopt and care for Kota when he has become a pro himself, although he did have to promise that they were allowed to visit whenever they wanted. UA is also in its second year. For all the manga readers out there, yeah, the thing doesn't happen. Endeavor hasn't changed that much since he became number. Ray is not in the hospital anymore and has met Izuku before. Ray and Endeavor are split up but not divorced yet. Ray has already signed the paper, but Endeavor doesn't want that to happen, as it might look bad on his hero career at this time. You want Ray to also end with Izuku, cause F Endeavor, Ray deserves something nice in her life. Any other question you have, please tell me and I will answer as soon as possible. This one should cheer everyone up a little. Truth spoke. The room was rather somber because of the new knowledge. In this universe, Izuku here has the power to produce flames out of his feet. His flames are rather strong, but something happened to him. When he was 4, his mother died in a villain attack. Sadly, during the attack, Izuku's quirk showed. Izuku also has a nervous tic. He smiles when nervous, but it often looks creepy and evil. Because of those facts, Izuku was dubbed a devil that killed his mother. This shocked people. How could they say something like that, but why would Truth even say that this would cheer them up? This didn't sway his dream in the slightest. He was going to become a hero. When Izuku entered UA, he became friends with all of you fine people with some exceptions. Instead of Kota going to UA, he went to Dobutsu Harupa Academia. Instead of Mineta going to UA, he went to Henjin Academia. For those 2 spots, it got given to a woman called Maki Oz, and another woman called Tamaki Kotatsu. Truth then showed the picture of the 2 women in question. Those are also their quirks. Maki, the woman on the left, has fire manipulation. She can also turn flames into something she calls sputters. The woman on the right is Tamaki, her quirk is Nakamata. To why she is in her BR. She has something she calls Lucky Lecher Lure. But she is just clumsy and tends to lose her clothing. Mineta got rather jealous hearing this. The one time he is not at UA, they get a CC babe that has problems keeping her clothes on. This is not the only addition to the normal story. Midnight in this story works together with someone, and they are a team in both hero work and teaching. Her hero's name is Princess Hibana. She has a fire ability herself, with her being able to create flowers of flame. This story begins when they are all pros. I won't tell anything else. Truth spoke and the screen started playing. It showed a street filled with destruction. Multiple destroyed buildings and fire. No dead bodies on the floor, thankfully. But there was a group of people on the floor in front of a villain. The villain stood at 3-5 meters. Large muscles, and in his right hand a big battle axe. In front of the villain were 5 women. First was Maki. Her arm was clearly broken and she was bleeding. The second was Tamaki. She had a multitude of cuts and brushes. It looks as if something had happened to one of her legs, but her breaths were covering any visible injury. Next was Midnight. She had a large slash over her stomach and looked as she lost consciousness. Next to her was Princess Hibana. Crouched in front of Midnight but looking in bad shape herself. Last was Ochiko. She was bleeding from the head and looked out of it. Now I will give you the option to die or accept your new place below me and serve me as your MSTR. The villain spoke. You're gravel, nothing more. You should give up and surrender. Hibana ordered as she attacked with Sakura flames. Normally these flames would be enough to give cuts and defeat villains. But now the flames did nothing. The villain swung the back part of the axe right into the stomach, knocking her down, making her nearly puke. The only reason I haven't used this axe to cut you all to bite-sized pieces is because of your bodies. Now one more chance, swears you will serve me as my loyal slaves. The villain declared. It didn't look good for the heroes. Back in the theater they were scared for Midnight and Ochako. The other woman they didn't know, but they still would not want this to happen. The pros saw the cut on Midnight was rather dangerous. It could result in death for sure if left alone. Rapid man smash. A familiar voice called out. A boom was heard and a foot was placed on the villain's face. Then the villain was shot backward. Have no fear, a hero has arrived. Deku Man came to the rescue. It showed Izuku. His green hair was like normal, but it showed the large creep smile he was dubbed a demon for. He now stood in between the woman and the villain. The kick itself did some real damage and made the villain fly back into one of the destroyed buildings. The villain threw the rubble off him and it showed that now his nose was broken. Who do you think you are? You attack me and now stand in between me and my slaves. The villain yelled out. I am Deku Man, the hero of all. What is the number one hero doing here? The villain first said, slightly scared, but he gripped his axe and strengthened his resolve. The villain screamed out in primal rage and charged Izuku. At first, people were excited. Izuku had become the number one hero. Many believed that he was befitting of the rank and title. Izuku also showed up to save the 5 women. But then the villain went to attack again and worry filled the watchers. This villain had already defeated 5 heroes and it seemed as if he now aimed to kill Izuku. Izuku jumped up high with the use of his flames. The villain had swung the axe and it missed Izuku. Izuku then again used the flames to shoot forward and knee the villain with a large amount of force. The villain's head shot backward slightly. Izuku then with his momentum gave a spinning kick that had extra firepower behind it, knocking the villain down and making the man lose grip on his axe. Surrender now or feel the flame of the devil, Izuku said as he had a combat stance and shot out large flames, giving him a scary feel. The villain wanted to keep fighting, but so far he was unable to even touch Izuku. And even if he could attack him, would he have enough power to be able to defeat the number? Fine, I surrender. The villain lifted his arms in defeat. Izuku wanted to cuff him right away, but right as Izuku was nearby, the villain got hold of the axe and tried chopping his head off. Izuku countered with a straight kick to the face with himself leaning back a bit. The axe swung in front of Izuku's face before the villain got knocked out by the kick. Izuku, now knowing the villain was knocked out, tied the arms of the villain and placed the axe out of range. Ambulances arrived shortly after Izuku had asked for surrender. They first went for Namuri as she had the worst of the injuries so far. Ochako also was a priority because of the head injury she sustained. Police arrived right as Namuri was placed in the ambulance. The villain was arrested. Izuku had to stay a little and talk to the press that arrived at the same time as the police. He gave kind words that the heroes involved tried their best, but it was an uneven matchup, but thankfully no one died and the heroes that received the injuries will make a full recovery. He then took some pictures and signed some autographs. It took around 20 minutes, but it was enough time for the injured heroes to without being bugged or harassed by the media. Izuku then made his way to the hospital to check up on the woman. Izuku greeted the nurse on the hero wing. He was brought into a very fancy-looking room with 4 beds. He knocked and entered. Hey, how's everyone? He asked, very worried about the 5 heroes. Maki, who had her arm in a cast and had her ribs bandaged. Namuri is still in surgery, but she is out of danger, but it will become a scar. As Maki said this, Izuku let a breath of relief. How about you all? Izuku asked again. Now Achiko spoke. Don't worry Deku-kun, we are fine. We just have to take it easy for a couple weeks. A nurse now got to the door and knocked. Mrs. Midoriya. The nurse asked with the four women in the beds answering. Yes. Sorry I meant MS, Uraraka. The doctor wants to set an appointment in 2 weeks for a checkup, does that work for you? Making the brown-haired girl nod. In the theater it was a little shocked. Izuku married 5 women in this universe. Achiko, who was right beside Izuku and was clinging onto his arm, was red and nearly crashed. Me and Deku-kun married, she said as she hugged his arm closer without thinking about it. The other girls were Jaluyas, sure they knew it wasn't this universe but still, they wanted to be called Mrs. Midoriya themselves. It showed the screen. It was now 2 weeks later. It showed Izuku in the kitchen. He was making a snack plank and grabbed a bottle of wine. He took it toward the living room and on the couch were the 5 women. All laying on the couch. It also had Eri and Kota sitting on 2 reclined chairs. So we decided what we are going to watch. Izuku asked as he placed the snack plan in the middle of the table. We decided to watch Red. Namuri said as she gave her wine glass to Izuku for him to fill. They all then went and watched the movie, Izuku in the middle of the couch with the head of Namuri on his lap. He slowly stroked her hair during the movie. See, that was better, right? Truth spoke and the smiles of all of Watcher except for Endeavor. Yes, even AFO, how long has he been #1 in that universe? Shoto asked Truth, wanting to know about his rise was. When he came out of UA, he within the first 6 months reached the top 10 heroes. It took him an extra 6 to reach number, so it took him 1 year, Truth answer. All Might was proud. It took himself 5 years to reach number. Let's take a small break. It will give the teachers to look through the notes and give you all some time to process what we just watched. We could do an fun thing in between Oswell, but that would be up to you all. Truth said, so yeah, it's done. Sorry you had to wait for so long. Now it's up to you all again. Like always for this. What do you want as a small break? I myself was thinking of honest Izuku and him giving answering some questions from the pros about what he thinks of them or what he thinks of his classmates of even actions done in the school. Or something else, the choice is yours. Or nothing, and it would just be a small chapter of them talking a bit more about backstory and some more history of Izuku. As always, give new ideas for chapters. My list so far is, Izuku with the straw hats, Izuku as Joker, won't do this one for now. Want to do some fun ones to cheer up the room, Izuku with the powers of Sukuna, Izuku's fights, Izuku with Watch Dogs powers, and last Izuku as Zoro in Ma. Give extras and more. I took Kaido Izuku off for now but still want to write it, but later. A small break and honest Izuku. Could we take a little time to discuss what we just witnessed? It was a lot to take in. The students asked. Truth expected something like that and nodded. That is fine. It was silent for a little while. Nobody knew how to start. Izuku was still very uncomfortable about everything. It's not the first time he was lied to by people who said that he could trust them. The first time he remembers was when he was finally in a class without Bakugo. He hoped it would have been different for once. And it did seem like it. He got someone to talk to him. He was called Kabuto. 1 full week, Kabuto hung with Izuku, but right when he started trusting Kabuto enough to tell him he had a crush. That was stupid, cause the very next day everyone knew about it. During class one of the girl's friends spoke about it and she fake gagged. Ever since that, it was rather hard to start trusting people. Izuku was friendly as much as possible. He just didn't like talking about himself because that is when you get hurt. Even at UA. He truly wanted to believe that he could trust his classmates. Something deep within his mind told him that the second they learned the truth they would betray him. Midoriya, Aizawa sounded calm. Izuku met his eyesight. Why did you start making these notes? What do you mean, sir? Why did you make them? I understand you wanted to be a hero, but why make these notes instead of working out? I have already read about a hero called Flexibility. Quirk Flexible makes the user as flexible as possible. You made notes that he would need more strength and better martial skills. From what I remembered him, this was correct. Yet it looked like you didn't train. So why? It never crossed my mind, I guess. Izuku tried lying. He didn't want to bring the mood down and didn't want to shine a light. So this is what it's going to be. Truth said. He snapped his fingers and nothing happened. At least it looked like nothing happened. Izuku, why did you make your notes? It was an escape that didn't resolve in me getting a beating. What the hell? Ojiro asked. That didn't sound like something Midoriya would say. What did you do? Nizu asked Truth. I made it so that Izuku here can only speak the truth. He can't lie or try and speak around the subject. Anything you ask him now is 100% the truth. Of course, they wanted to know if this was correct. They just didn't know what to ask. This was going to be the absolute truth. The girls had one question they wanted to ask, but the fear of him rejecting is stopping them. What is your thought about being in a relationship? Momo asked. She believed it was a good question. The normal Izuku would speak around the subject. I would love one, but my fear of being hurt and my social shyness make it so that would be very unlikely, Izuku said. It kinda shocked people. What is your opinion on me as a mother? Inko said. She fully believed she failed as a mother and needed a truthful answer. You are the most amazing mother. I couldn't even dream of a better mother. Without you, I would have ended it years earlier. It was sad when you gained. Wait, but it never changed anything. It brought tears to Inko. Tears of pure joy. She hated herself as she believed she was also at fault for her son's pain and suffering. Why didn't you train your body to become a hero? Aizawa asked, now hopefully getting a truthful answer out of him this time. Mostly it was a fear of receiving a bigger beating each day. I had a hard enough time getting pushed around because I was smarter than most. I was forced to get lower grades than I would normally get because I was upstaging the others. I didn't want to find out how much the beatings would worsen if I looked like I had become a physical challenge as well. The second part was hope. I hoped for a wonder quirk. I believed that becoming a hero would only be possible with a quirk. Izuku said, but why you have Eraserhead in your note? Sir Night Eye hasn't got a combat quirk at all. So why does a quirk matter? Midnight asked. Sure, their quirk doesn't hold combat power, but they helped. Aizawa, whilst not having a quirk that gives a power that gives him extra power, it bring most people to a massive disadvantage. Even now at UA, we focus far more on how to better our quirks than we do on the skill of how we fight. Aizawa removes the one thing they know to fight with. Sir Night Eye, whilst having no such ability, can see someone for a full day. Making it easier to spot patterns, thus making it easier to spot how attacks are thrown. I could learn it that way as well, but whilst it wouldn't give Sir Night Eye a search, I would have to learn by falling over and over again. It made sense. Even the weirdest quirks gave people some edge. Do you still want to become our daddy? Eri asked, sound scared that she was going to be sent away. There is nothing in this world that I want more. What are your thoughts on the girls' bodies? Mineta asked. For the first time in the time they had known Mineta, they wanted to thank him. They are all appealing woman that deserves a perfect life and someone who would treat them like the queens they all are. To say all the women got blushes would be an understatement. What is your thought on the entrance exam? Nizu asked, wondering what someone like Izuku thought about. It's rather biased to combat-focused quirks. Sure, you made it so people could get points with rescues, but it mainly focused on fighting. Sure, fighting villains is the largest part of being a hero, but seeing we would be first years right after the entrance exam. The chance of losing out on a super quirk is rather high that way. But for quirks that have a combat use is pretty great. Who is in the top 5 in our class? Siro asked. Momo, me, Mina, Ochiko, and Todoroki. Could you please explain? Momo asked, rather confused about the list. She had never believed she or the other girls would be on the list. Well, I looked for total power. Momo can create anything she wants, nukes, bombs. She could destroy the economy with nothing more than the dollar menu from McDonald's. I have the power of All Might, so if I would go all out I would most likely kill the person I would punch. Mina has acid, so she could melt away anyone or anything, All Might or concrete. Ochako has the power of gravity. 5 fingers, and Tada, she now only has to wait before the other is in space. Nobody and no weapon. Todoroki can use both fire and ice at short and long ranges. It made sense, and it was a shock. What is your thought about villains like us? Toga asked. How do you mean villain like us? You mean organized crime or something else? We who were forced into being a villain. It's a shame. A quirk like your Toga would be great for being a hero. Capturing a member of an organization and then taking their place. Would be easy to take down large groups. Dabi or Toya was just a very sad case from what I know about it. But the hate for people with villainous quirks is just stupid. A quirk is nothing more than a tool like a knife. One way it can help people by cutting food to help feed you. Or attack people. All Might, AFO, Stain, and UA staff smiled deeply. They knew that Izuku would lead the new generation into a great future. Endeavor was angered. How dare this weakling dare place his perfect creation into the last place in terms of strength. While the others asked questions to Izuku, the teachers were speaking about the notebooks with Inko and some of the pros. Ms. Midoriya, did you know your son made these notes? Nizu asked as he just finished the final book. I knew he had those notebooks. I had seen what was in some of them but never really knew how accurate they were. I just thought it was a hobby for him. I should have really looked into those notes when I gave him my autograph. Toshinori said as he shook his head. When did this happen? After young Midoriya was attacked by a slime villain. He was grabbed shortly after. I lost sight of the villain, but I defeated him shortly after. And then gave him an autograph. You mean the slime villain that in the universe where Izuku had those spider powers? Yes, the same one, yes. Now we are talking about other universes. I wish to talk about young Midoriya with the power of the number 1 villain, Nizu said with AFO popping up out of nowhere. Yes, it was rather interesting. He spoke, shocking the heroes. Inko's eyes opened. Could you please say, honey, I am home? Inko asked, but it sounded more like a demand. AFO knew what was about to happen and 100% did not want to anger her, did as he was asked. The people watching were a little confused. All Might was having a small mental crisis as he understood what happened. He had been dating Inko for a little while now. They had been going on a couple of dates. But he was now dating the ex-wife of his arch-nemesis. And to make matters a little weirder, Izuku Midoriya, the 9th user of OFA, was the child of AFO. Hisashi. Inko said as she rushed at AFO. People first assumed she was going to hug him. They did not expect Inko to use her quirk to lift her slipper into her hand and start beating AFO with it. How could you? You left me and our child alone to fend for ourselves. How dare you lie to me and your child? The symbol of evil, the man that brought fear to all who looked at him, was covering his head to protect him from the slipper hits. And my mom. Izuku used OFA to flash forward and grab his mother and shield her from retaliation from AFO. Thank you, son. I believed she would have killed me, he said rather loudly, making everyone in the theater hear it. Wow, I would have assumed it would have taken 3 more universes before that would have come out. He is a villain just like his rotten father. Endeavor said, flames roaring ready to attack. Rei and Fuyumi were about to use ice. Toya was about to cremate, pun intended, his father. The others were also ready to spring into action. Toga never wanted to look at, though she held deep resentment toward him. If he dared to threaten her Zuzu, she would make an exception. Stain attempted to strike, but his weapons missed their mark. Before he could make another move, his flames suddenly extinguished. I did tell you that the next time you use your quirk I would take it away, didn't I? Truth spoke anger in his voice. I know all too well what you have done, Enji Todoroki. If anyone deserves the title villain it would be you. Even AFO cared for his child and ex-wife. You on the other hand care for nothing but power. Truth snapped his fingers again and it looked as if Enji started to shrink. In reality, Truth had removed all power from Enji. His quirk gone, his muscles gone. Everything he had worked for gone. Rei for the first time in her adult life felt some weight lift off her. In all her life as she had met Enji she felt this scorching here surround her, making it hard to breathe or to move. But now seeing his weak body gave her freedom to do what she wanted. She punched him right in the face. And with her now easily being stronger of Enji knocked him to the floor. Nobody moved a muscle to help the new sickly Enji on the floor. Rei got her children by the arm and moved far away from him. But, wait, is it really the case that you're Midoriya's dad? Ida asked. Ida himself couldn't care if Izuku's father was a hero or a villain. But it did raise some points for some of the smarter people. It is. One of my aliases was Hisashi Midoriya, but after Toshinori here gave me a makeover I decided it was smarter to remove Hisashi. I do regret not helping Inko and Izuku with financial help, but with Mr. Symbol of Peace here trying to hunt me down, leaving a trail of yen to them. The media would run them to the ringer and the heroes would ruin their life trying to find about me. And I couldn't stand having my family's life ruined because of my actions. AFO said, making Inko smile. This was the man she fell in love with, or at least the part she was in love with. The kind warm-hearted man who cared deeply for her and her son. I do have a question and I want you to answer honestly. Did you take young Midoriya's quirk when he was younger? Toshinori asked with silence filling the room in shock. What did you think of the chapter? I know everyone expected AFO being Izuku's dad as it's a little overused, but I still like the angle. Also, I took away all of Enji's power, should it be permanent or just for a little while? Now the big question from this chapter. Did AFO steal a quirk from Izuku? And if yes, what should it be? AFO or a stronger version of Inko's quirk? Maybe a modified version of AFO. Now for the next chapter. I am going to give suggestions like always, but if no one comments I am going to choose myself. Option: the quirkless swordman Izuku, Zoro as Izuku. Option 2: Izuku with the Straw Hats. Option 3: Izuku with Madara's power as a vigilante. Option 4: your choice. Also, it's my little headcanon that AFO is scared of Inko, same for Mitsuki, Izuku, and All Might. Midoriya Uchiha. AFO said, making Inko smile. This was the man she fell in love with, or at least the part she was in love with. The kind warm-hearted man who cared deeply for her and her son. I do have a question and I want you to answer honestly. Did you take young Midoriya's quirk when he was younger? Toshinori asked with silence filling the room in shock. Nobody spoke a word. Most people looked at Izuku's face. Izuku stared at the floor in deep thought. His mind going far faster than normal. All his thoughts were the same. Did I really have a quirk, to begin with? Was all the torment I endured because of the selfish actions of my father? Inko had similar thoughts. Did her baby boy really endure 14 years of bullying and torment all because Hisashi stole Izuku's quirk? And even if he didn't steal Izuku's quirk, the Hisashi that Inko remembered would have never let their son suffer for 14 years. Why did Hisashi not give Izuku a quirk? Sure, Inko would never be okay with Hisashi stealing the quirks of people. But a quirk of someone who would have used it for evil, or her baby boy with the heart of an angle, the choice was clear. Bakugo was emotionless. His eyes were wide. Did his uncle really steal the quirk of Izuku? It's AFO's fault that Izuku and he aren't friends anymore. No, that wasn't his fault. He wanted to blame AFO, but Bakugo knew it was his own fault. He used his quirk on Izuku because he wanted to. Bakugo insulted Izuku for years. The girls never like AFO. He was a villain and the cause of many problems for everyone, but the thought of him being the reason Izuku was treated like pure trash. I did, AFO said. Not in his normal prideful voice but a sad soft voice. Everyone wanted to know more. Aizawa had his hand on the blade he had on his lower back. Just waiting for AFO to speak rudely. All Might called upon the last embers of OFA and was ready to force his fist right through the chest of AFO. The only time Toshinori ever felt like this was after he found out AFO killed Nana. I did so for him. Not for my pleasure or to increase my power. In fact, I have not even touched his quirk. The only reason I took his quirk is to save him from hatred and greed. Much like myself. My quirk, like my name, is AFO. It allows me to steal the quirks of those I touch. Izuku's quirk would allow him to do so telepathically. His mother's quirk would receive a massive boost, most likely because of how it reacts to AFO. When I grew up with this quirk of mine, people often hated people with quirks. The more I grew up, the more my heart filled with hate. I then wanted nothing more to become powerful that I could never get looked down upon. People did not expect that. Sure, they assumed his life was a little weird, but again he was created by his surroundings. When I met Inko, it first was nothing but an interesting time to spend my time. But I just kept spending time with her over and over again. I kept going on dates and wanting to spend more time with her. Before I knew it, I asked her to marry me and she said yes. Then Izuku was born. And I saw a second chance for myself. I knew I would pay for my sins, but I wanted Izuku and Inko to be free of those sins. But those dreams broke down the second the doctor told me the quirk Izuku had. The fear of him following in my footsteps. Of him becoming a new and stronger me. I could not let that stand. So I took his quirk. I made sure he could never become like me. I wanted him to be greater. I wanted to give him a new quirk. One that he could become whatever he wanted to become. Why did you not believe in Izuku's strength? Inko asked her ex-husband. Emerald. I created destruction and chaos with this quirk. I tried bringing the world to a complete stop because of my quirk. There are hundreds of heroes that would want nothing more than to put me under the ground. How could I allow a 4-year-old child to walk around with that power? You saw how Endeavor wanted to attack him the second he knew who his father was. Other heroes would try and do the same, or Villian would come to attack to gain a hold over the mighty AFO. Police would stalk and interrogate you both day and night about me. I could never do that to the both of you. AFO said with a soft smile, showing the love he still holds for Inko and Izuku. I can give you your quirk back now if you want. It's only right. No. This was a shock to hear. Why would Izuku not want his own quirk? Why? I won't accept anything from you until you return Ragdoll's quirk. She deserves a quirk far more than I deserve one. Ha 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 ha. AFO started laughing loudly. Ragdoll had tears in her eyes. She knew Izuku was a sweet, amazing boy that deserved her full heart, and this just showed how true that was. AFO, after laughing, walked over to Ragdoll, who felt fear. He laid his hand on her head, and after a short spike of pain, she felt whole again. The peace she felt missing ever since that day was back. Tears came forth, and she did the only thing her mind told her. She rushed over to Izuku, crying and laughing, thanking him over and over again. How about we enjoy a new universe before Izuku gains his old quirk back? Truth asked, with Izuku giving a silent chuckle. I guess I waited for 14 years, so a little bit longer isn't that much, right? He tried joking, but it kind of brought the mood down a little bit as they just thought about how long he already suffered. The screenshot on after Truth snapped his fingers. It showed a multitude of villains beaten on the floor. All injured. Some had bruised cuts or burns all over their body. In a large number of villains, you could recognize some. You could see Toga, Shigaraki, Overhaul, Dabi, Twice, the other members of LOV, and the Yakuza. Some were more injured than others. Both Shigaraki and Overhaul had their hands removed. For Shigaraki his arms were next to him. For Overhaul both his arms were placed into his anus. You looked over the battlefield and on the other side of the villains, it was heroes. Also beaten and defeated. All the students of UA on the ground beaten and defeated. Mirko laid with her leg broken. Bakugo had 2 black metal rods through both his hands. It was hard to look at. Izuku saw Overhaul and smiled. Sure, he was never going to do those actions, but whoever was the cause of that deserved at least some flowers or maybe some candy. It was a hard sight to see for everyone. Seeing themselves broken and defeated on the floor. Mirko placed one of her hands onto the leg that was broken in this universe. I can't see Deku-kun. Achiko said, confused why her green-haired crush wasn't with them. He is probably beating the villain up that did all of that. Mina said, with Toru adding on. Or going to show up all heroic and saving the day like always. Izuku blushed at the praise he got from the woman, but that stopped when they saw who did all of that. The camera showed a man in red armor with long black hair. Pick above, small parts of green in the hair. 4 freckles on each cheek. The eyes that were normally bright green were now purple. He stood above all of them with 3 people laying right in front of him. It was AFO, All Might, and Mirio. The 3 of them all defeated and broken, but Izuku didn't even look like he broke a sweat. He crouched down in front of the 3 of them and began to speak. I would have expected far more from the symbols of evil and peace. And of course, the successor of All Might himself, but I see your titles were just hype. You are supposed to be the protector of those that trust you, believe in you. Yet here you lay, broken and defeated on the floor. Protecting the frail version of peace. The peace that causes many people to lose their life, all because none of you thought you could lose. They place far too much faith in you weaklings. Izuku said in a proud voice. His foot now on top of Mirio's head. Sorry for but now my actions, Mirio. Izuku apologized. Mirio laughed. Don't worry, Midoriya. You can't know peace unless you know pain. And I more than anyone know pain, thus I know true peace. And I will make sure everyone gets peace themselves. I will become the point of fear. I will make sure everyone fears me, and with that, the world shall know true peace. I and my subordinates will make sure the world knows peace. It then showed some people behind him. 10 people all wearing black robes with red clouds. I hoped we could play with them ourselves, Madara-sensei, the man with the orange mask said. With Izuku responding. Don't worry, Toby. We get to show the entire world who their new rulers are. We start with Japan. So go on, show your strength. The 10 of them sprang away after giving a sign of acceptance. Todoroki, who was still barely awake and was beaten to a pulp. Who even are you? He weakly got out. I am just a boy who lost his mother thanks to heroes and villains that were supposed to bring peace. I wish to be a hero, but just time after time. First, my father got taken from me because that BSTRD you call a father did not care for collateral. Then not even a year before the UA entrance exam, All Might got careless and a smile villain used my mother as a puppet. Izuku said, set off at the memory. I already apologized. I never imagined things would turn out that way. I tried to make it right, All Might said weakly, struggling through pain. Oh, really? Then I suppose that means my mother is alive and everything is back to normal, right? But no, she's gone, and I haven't forgiven you. Still, this isn't just about that. This is about something bigger. Everyone was silent. How could they talk while Izuku spoke about losing his family? And if they were honest, they understood it. None of them knew how they would react if they saw their mother used as a puppet by a villain. I will bring peace. No one should fight or harm others, and as long as that rule is followed, there will be no need for action. If no one opposes the Akatsuki, they will not retaliate. These are the rules that must be respected, Izuku declared, rising to his feet. Suddenly, A villain who had not been fully subdued managed to capture one of the heroes, Ochiko Uraraka. The villain, with a quirk that hardened their nails, held her threateningly, causing a minor injury. Okiko Ocha Uraraka, her friends called out afraid for her life. Don't worry. Deku-kun is there and he would never allow people to hurt me, right? Making Izuku give her a nod. Right then a kunai flew forward and pierced the head of the villain, instantly killing him. Then more Izukus showed up and pierced the villain with swords from every angle. The villain was stuck on a cross all of a sudden. You did not follow the only rule I gave. You shall now understand a part of my pain. He then started stabbing the villain over and over again. Everyone back at the theater looks in fear and it made a lot of them sick. Sure, they wanted the guy to get beaten up a little, but this is going a little far. It then showed the three of them in the time they stood before. But the nail villain, and he dropped to the floor and started screaming. Tsukimi, Izuku said as his eyes turning around into a new form. I will go for now. I will give you 1 week to swear your loyalty to the new order. If not, my plans will be forced into step, and that is something I don't want to do. Izuku then disappeared into a group of clouds. Siro said, with most of the guys agreeing. Cece with the long hair though. Midnight said under her breath, making only her friends hear her. AFO then stood up and stood in front of Izuku. Can I give your quirk back, son? Izuku just looked around wanting to see the reaction of the people around him. Was he expected faces of anger? He saw smiles and nods. Even All Might nodded that he should take this deal. And Izuku did. I will accept this quirk. I will make sure to help everyone with it. I will make sure the list of pain and despair you created with your quirk will be wiped out. And with that, Izuku was given back his quirk. Option 1, Zoro Midoriya. Option 2, Solo Leveling Midoriya. Option 3, Izuku with the Straw Hats. Option 4, your options, Solo Leveling. Izuku just received his power and he felt it. He felt stronger than before, he just didn't understand why. So Deku-kun feel any different? Ochiko asked as she sat next to Izuku, still kind of scared of his father. Yeah, I do, I feel stronger than before. It's quite the sensation. Izuku said as he looked at his hand. AFO, now content with what he sees, walks back to his seat with a smile on his face. He truly hoped his son would walk the correct path. Something he knew was going to happen. These Izukus all had incredible powers. And so far only one universe he could be considered evil. So now our class Cinnamon Roll has both the powers of the greatest hero All Might and one of the greatest villains All for One, but not only that, he had psychic powers as well, Mina said, with people giggling or laughing at the Cinnamon title. More like Cinnamon Roll. Truth said, with people looking confused at him. What not only does he had pervy thoughts from time to time like any young adult, but he has broken multiple laws. During his fights and such. What for laws? Aizawa asked rather calmly. He knew Izuku no matter what would always become a problem child. Well, how about his illegal quirk usage when him, Ida, and Shoto here defeated Stain? They did what? Most of UA yelled out. Oh yeah, you all thought it was Endeavor. No, it was a deal they made. The three boys would not get a black mark on their files and Endeavor would get the fame from the takedown. This made them all think. One of the biggest arrests Endeavor had made wasn't even his real arrest. But that is a story for another time. How about we look at a universe where Izuku is beyond powerful. And quite good looking. This received a loud yes from all the women. The guys knew that if they wanted to reach the new year, they would have to agree, so that they did in the name of good health. Monoma could care less about this bullshit, but this was a great opportunity. He was going to get close to Izuku and steal both his quirks. First, he would copy AFO plus, my name for it, and take the quirks from AFO and Izuku. That way no one could stand in his way. Can you explain the universe beforehand, Truth sir? Sometimes it's a little confusing to understand what happens. Shoji asked, with again a large group agreeing. I can do that. In this world, there are no heroes or villains. In this world there are hunters. The hunters have a certain job. That job is to go and clear gates. Gates are random warp portals that open randomly around the world. In those gates are monsters like high orcs, goblins and wolves. Of course monsters, gates, and hunters all get certain ranks. Weakest being E, then up to D, then C, B, and A. There is also S rank, but those are extremely rare. So let me guess, Midoriya is S rank. Monoma said in an annoyed voice. Yes and no. In the beginning, Midoriya is known by a title. The weakest hunter. He was at the bottom of E rank. How strong would that make him? A little stronger than the average person. Like he could beat most normal people in a fight, but it would be close. What are our ranks? Mirko said. Some of you have ranks, some of you don't. There is a massive difference in this world. Quirks don't exist, they are called awakenings. Some of you receive an awakening and some don't. But about that. Ochako is B rank healing mage. Aizawa is a C rank fire mage, Kirishima was a rank tank. Most of you were B or A. The only real changes were Jiro being S rank, the same for Monoma. All Might on the other hand is even above that. He is something called a nation level hunter. What is the difference between those ranks? All Might asked. Well, a normal S rank hunter still needs help taking down a ranked dungeons. Nation level hunters on the other hand can take them down, solo. It's quite a show. But Midoriya is E rank and gets hurt during each dungeon. But during a D rank dungeon, they find a double dungeon, something extremely rare. Aizawa, Ochako, and Izuku enter that dungeon and they fail hard with their group. In the end, the group was either dead or ran away. In the last part, it was the three of them. Aizawa's arm was cut off and Izuku's leg was removed. Ochako, while her body had no major injury, her mind was broken because of fear. How scary was it then? Let's say that not even All Might and AFO could give you the same amount of fear. But Aizawa told both Midoriya and Ochako to run, but both were unable to do so. Izuku gave himself so that Ochako could leave with the help of Aizawa. With the promise that when Izuku gets out he would take her to dinner. As the two of them left, Izuku was killed or nearly killed. He was given a sort of reawakening. Something extremely rare. With this new power, he could level his own stats and much more. It was for him much like playing a game. With that he became very strong. Not even All Might could lay a scratch on him, and I am talking about the All Might in this universe. Now with that out of the way, let's start the show. And with that Truth snapped his fingers and the show began. The scene depicted a dark, cave-like area with disturbing imagery. A scream echoed as Zero, wearing armor, appeared severely injured. Several other characters were shown harmed, including Ida with a serious injury to his arm. Ochako was seen frightened, huddled against the wall, while a group of threatening figures stood before her with weapons. Ida was trying to stop the bleeding whilst trying to crawl away from the orcs. Only one person stood, it was Kirishima. His armor was nearly broken down and destroyed. His shield had cracks in it and his sword was chipped. He was fighting two high orcs himself, but that was too much for him. Kirishima was a rank and a high orc was a rank themselves. That would mean that one-on-one Kirishima could take them, but when two against one it was harder, but in his state now it's nearly impossible. The high orcs that fought Kirishima worked together. One broke the shield and the other aimed for his head. Kirishima believed he was dead. Ida looked back and saw the high orc swinging downward, aiming to kill him right there. Ochako could only scream as the orc swung its axe horizontal to cut off her head. They all screamed in fear of death. It was the end of their lives. Back in the theater, they all screamed themselves. Screaming for their friends to not die here. They screamed for All Might to show up and save the day like he always does. Izuku begged his other self to show up and protect his friends. Arrive like All Might and save the day with a smile on your face. The sound of a slash was heard, then a spray of red. It was silent. Not a single sound was heard except the sound of bodies falling to the floor. It showed everyone fine but tears in their eyes. The orc that tried beheading Ochako was in the air with a long sword in its chest. The orc that wanted to cut Ida in two was himself slashed by a bear paw. The two that aimed to kill Kirishima were cut in half by a giant sword. In the theater, they were wondering who this was. Who had this set of power? Were his new monsters or were his saviors? However, it gave the three some more time to hopefully get away. The three knew what that meant. They looked toward where the entrance was. And it showed their savior. The high orcs that were still alive looked at the new arrival and began getting angry. Izuku gave the order for the three high orcs behind him to attack. They did as they were told and it turned to a one-sided slaughter. While this happened, Izuku walked up to Ochako. "You okay?" Ochako looked up at her savior with tears in her eyes. She hugged his leg thanking him. "Ochako, that can happen later, they need your help now." With that, Ochako went to action to help them. She wanted nothing more than to cry in the arms of Izuku, but that could wait until they were out of this dungeon. "I am going to take care of the boss. Get ready to get out of here. You three stay with them," Izuku told the three high orcs who just slaughtered the rest of the high orcs. As they stood guard, Izuku walked forward with his hands in his pocket. The survivors wanted to call out to him telling him to stop and not go alone, but it wasn't just any hunter. It was the man that even the nation-level hunters ask for help. The only man that can be considered a one-man army. Izuku keeps walking forward, having his soldiers take care of each monster showing up. It was supposed to be a low A rank dungeon, but Izuku knew this was high A at least. They needed an S rank in their midst, or at least more A rankers. For Izuku, a rank dungeon wasn't any challenge. He barely even got EXP from them. It took him around 5 minutes before finding the boss's door. It would have taken less, but the dungeon had a large number of hallways. Izuku without a doubt opened the door and came to a sight he saw before. The entire room was filled with high orcs. Hundreds and hundreds of high orcs that stood ready for a death battle. He can't fight all of them, right? That is beyond insane. Inko asked, worried for her son. "Do not worry, Inko, your son in this universe could take down your entire hero verse and win, especially if he wanted to kill them," Truth said. Still, young Midoriya should have some more help when fighting hundreds of these monsters. He and his small group of soldiers are at a massive disadvantage. Toshinori said very worriedly about his successor. "Whoever said he only had a small army?" Truth said with a smirk. Izuku waved his arm and a large army showed up behind Izuku. The 5 that stood next to Izuku gave off different energy than the rest. They gave off a feeling of pure power. But something they also noticed. The large shadow with a hammer and shield had a face they all but recognized. "Tetsu Tetsu mi bro," the students yelled out in surprise. "What am I doing as one of Midoriya's shadows? Aren't they supposed to be monsters or something?" Tetsu Tetsu asked pretty confusedly about the whole situation. "No, Midoriya can extract and use the shadow out of anyone. Monster or human. In your case, Midoriya was asked to join on Ibi rank dungeon, and when they entered it turned to a red gate. Which is a portal to a very dangerous place. Midoriya was still an E rank at that time, and Tetsu Tetsu, who was the same as Kirishima, an A rank tank, was seen as party leader. Long story short, nearly everyone who went with Tetsu Tetsu died, while everyone who went with Midoriya survived. After around 3 days, Tetsu Tetsu arrived at Camp Midoriya and became enraged that you all were hoarding food and clothing as the area was a winterland. The same people that killed Tetsu Tetsu's group arrived, killing Tetsu Tetsu. Midoriya took care of the rest of them and extracted the shadow of them and Tetsu Tetsu, and because Tetsu Tetsu was an A rank, he was named Iron. Truth spoke with Tetsu Tetsu understanding and finding his own self kind of a pages. "I made Iron have the face of Tetsu Tetsu. I did this cause the kanji for Tetsu Tetsu had iron in it and found it pretty funny." The shadow army of Midoriya attacked and clearly overpowered the orc army. The high orc shaman stayed still on his chair. Izuku walked forward without having to lift a finger. His shadow soldiers cleared the way for him. No high orc came even close. The shaman raised his hand and 5 high orc commanders showed up. Iron, Tank, Tusk, Igris, Baru, take care of them, said the 5 of them, springing in action. The 5 high orc commanders were clearly outmatched and quickly overpowered. Izuku continued forward, but he lifted his arms out of his pockets and 2 daggers showed up out of nowhere. What, I thought he was a mage class because of the summons. Isn't this like an MMORPG game? Kaminari asked, as he knew a lot of gaming and most mages would not run with daggers, they would normally run wands or staffs, maybe scepters. He is again a rather special case. He is classed as a mage yet runs mostly daggers like an assassin, yet he had a long sword that he gave to Igris. But he has enough HP and strength to be a tank class as well. He is a jack of all trades and a MSTR of each of them. Truth said with a laugh. Izuku with his 2 daggers shot forward with speeds that made Ida and Mirko jealous. Izuku slashed with his daggers and nearly instantly killed the boss. As Izuku killed the boss, the shadow soldiers also took care of the high orcs. Izuku, now done with the dungeon, walked up to the boss's corpse. Arise, and as he said that, the shadows of not just the high orc shaman but also the high orc commanders and the high orc soldiers all began to rise, and now stood the same amount of orcs but as a shadow ready to serve Izuku in any way he sees fit. Izuku made his way toward where Ochako, Ida, and Kirishima were. Ochako was able to heal all of them yet was out of mana now because of the grave injuries that the 2 of them had. Izuku grabbed Ochako bridal style himself, and with that, all of them went out of the cave. In the theater, Ochako and Izuku were blushing at the screen. Ochako had started hugging Izuku close without even realizing it herself. The girls were silently wishing it was them getting carried like that, while most girls were silently wishing. Toga, Mina, Setsuna, Yui, and Nemuri were vocal about it. As they walked out, the portal cheers were heard for Izuku. With that, the screen turned to white. What, that's it? We need more. Denki demanded, as he liked a universe where it was like a game. Others were in agreement with Denki as they enjoyed it. Even though there was some horrible violence, it wasn't the worst they could see. Later maybe. Now we have more to watch and more to enjoy. Truth said. Boom, done, and I do believe I did a decent job. I really enjoyed writing this chapter. Now for the next options, I am gonna SWCH it up a little. Option 1, Izuku only male SNSL. I am not going to write lemons yet, this would just be a bit dirty with insinuating that they did the dirty. It would just be Izuku doing it with all the ladies really. Option 2, Izuku with the straw hats. Option 3, Immortal Izuku. Option 4, your choice. Do let me know your thoughts, don't forget to vote and comment, and have a plus ultra day. The Straw Hat Pirates, it's different from the other stories I have seen so far, so please bear with me. I do love how I made this though. Let's see what we can watch next, shall we? Truth said, do one. Was Izuku dresses hot again? Mina called out. Hell yeah. Green should really wear normal clothing for once. Setsuna said with Mineta calling out. Midoriya should just dress like normal. Mineta calling out was rather strange, as so far nearly every universe Izuku had some relationship with a super hot babe and Mineta did not. Yo Mineta, what's up with you yelling out like that? Shouldn't you hate Midoriya for taking all the chicks? Denki asked as the others were talking about Izuku's sense of clothing. Of course, I hate him for taking all my hot babes, but it can't be helped, but I will not make that womanizer dress better so that he can stuck the rest of Japan. Denki had to agree. He knew Midoriya was a bro, but he didn't want to stay single for life. With the others. Midoriya could indeed relook his clothing choices, Momo said, trying not to sound rude to her green-haired crush. What's wrong with my clothing now? Izuku asked, really confused about this whole thing. He really likes his t-shirt. They were comfy and cheap. Izuku, sweetie, you know I love you, but your clothing style is horrible. I don't even know how you keep getting those shirts. I have never bought one for you, but they keep popping up. Inko said, yeah, I wouldn't mind helping you look a little better when we get back, Mitsuki said, trying to reconnect with her nephew. Oh, let's do a massive makeover on Izuku when we get back. Why do I need a makeover? He asked, rather confused about the whole thing. No one ever said anything about his clothing. Well, that might have been because he didn't have any friends beforehand. And they did ask about his shirts when he had entered UA. This could also be normal. Do friends give each other makeovers, or is this some way to bully him? I found one. We could also do a makeover a little later, won't be that hard to make up clothing. Truth said as he snapped his fingers and a t-shirt started to appear. I guess you would like a backstory on this. With this, the people in the theater nodded. Izuku never got in this world, to begin with. He lived in a world where pirates live. While their pirates exist, you also have marines. So young Midoriya is one of those marines and saves everyone, right? Toshinori said with a smile, believing his successor would always choose justice. Nope. Midoriya is a pirate, but not just any pirate. He joined the crew of one Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy wanted to be king of the pirates. And to reach that goal he went out onto the open sea, recruiting many strong people and traveling on his journey. Now, let's watch this. It was dark. The camera back up and it showed it was a room. You could hear a soft snore and a larger than normal figure. A blanket over the chest and head area. His legs spread out, showing he was taller than any normal person. It then showed outside. Many trees were showed and the floor mossy. Bubbles floated from the ground up to the sky. Large booms were heard, waking the massive man up. He raised the blanket still over his head. A deep and gruff voice spoke. I guess the captain's back. While deeper than normal, it was clear whose voice it was. The camera went close to only show his face, and it showed it was in fact Midoriya Izuku. A strong jawline and long whitish hair. It then went outside as a second large explosion was heard and a flash was seen. Midoriya walked out the door, and there he stood at a massive 4 meters. With a large weapon on his back. Oh, my freaking god, 1A yelled out, shocked at the mountain on a man Izuku was now. That came out of me, Inko yelled out, making a lot of people slap their hands to stop laughing. They would also be wondering if they were in their position, but DMN, it was still funny as hell. Don't worry, Inko was a grower. He came out normal sized and grew. Izuku crouched slightly and jumped. It looked as if he charged up OFA with the distance he made. He grabbed the large weapon on his back. The weapon he received from his father's son. And thought back. It was just after the War of the Best. Both Ace and Whitebeard received deadly injuries and wouldn't make it past the day. Both got back to the Moby PP with Luffy and Izuku with them. Luffy worked for him to make it to Marineford. Izuku was sent that way after what happened with Sabaody and Kuma. Izuku was sent to the Whitebeard pirates, who were docked at a nearby island. Izuku quickly figured out who they were, and Gru said his island was wiped out, all because his BLD was in his veins, but that anger could wait. I need a ship to get back to my crew. Josu and Marco walked forward, ready to face this man. Do you not know who we are, kid? Josu said, yeah, you're the Whitebeard pirates. If you don't want to give me one, at least call Ace, he should want to help. This caused the Whitebeard pirates to become a little saddened, and a gruff and old voice was heard as a larger figure spoke. DMN, he big as hell, Zero said, with some of the other kids nodding. Midoriya does look like his head, Mirio said. Present Mike whispered to the UA staff. You know, I think Midoriya's mom might have a type. Larger than life and a scar on the chest sound familiar. Why would my son care if he talked with you? Whitebeard spoke, now standing in front of Izuku. Izuku looked at Whitebeard and his face turned with anger. He clenched his fist, wanting to punch his father in the face. That was just what he did. He punched Whitebeard right in the face. Whitebeard took the punch and stumbled back a little. He brought his hand to his nose and saw he had a nosebleed. Whitebeard punched Izuku back, but instead of Izuku stumbling back, he flew backward a couple of meters. Holy hell, how strong is that old man? Tetsu yelled out, not thinking anyone could be stat strong. Papa is stronger, Eri yelled out with Kota nodding beside her. What the hell? Pops hit him and he only flew like 21 feet. Why the hell would he attack Pops? One of the crewmates said. What is your problem, boy? Whitebeard spoke, also a little surprised that Izuku didn't fly further away. You will pay, because of you my mother is dead, Izuku yelled as he shot forward and punched Whitebeard in the gut, making the larger man go up in the air a little. Whitebeard, who now saw Izuku's face clearly, remembered only one woman with those appealing green eyes. Inko. He said with a soft voice. This stopped Midoriya for a second, making the Whitebeard commanders jump on Izuku and pinning him to the floor. You're Inko's boy, aren't you? Yeah, so what of it? What happened to her? How did she die? Whitebeard sounded sad as he asked this. When I was 4, Marines and pirates came to our island. There had been a rumor that the child of Whitebeard lived on the island, but Whitebeard had no idea. So they went to kill it. My mother protected me from them. I hid under her corpse for 3 days while the fighting continued. I then promised to become strong, stronger than anyone else, and stronger than the mighty Whitebeard. So that I never have to hide while my loved ones get killed. This made everyone tear up a little and angry at the Marines. They were supposed to save people and bring justice, not wipe out an entire island in hopes of killing a child. Wait, your Pops, kid. Pops, is this real? Marco asked with Whitebeard sitting back down on his chair, signaling to his crew they should release Midoriya. I believe so. Inko was the love of my life, but she had a fear of the ocean, so we could never have been together. We had years together. I never knew that Inko and I got a child. If I did, I would have made sure it would have been protected. I never wanted something like that to happen to her. It did, but it's the past and I don't want to deal with you, so where is Ace? I need to get back to Luffy. That won't be a possible, kid. Ace has been taken by the Marines, we're going to save him soon. With that, Izuku decided to join in. The Whitebeard pirates didn't stand a chance to disagree. During Marineford, Izuku met Luffy again, did all they could to save Ace. They fought as hard as they could and even managed to unchain Ace. But as they were running back, Akainu used Hellhound as an distraction. With that distraction, Akainu attacked both Whitebeard and Ace and pierced their gut. But weren't the person they wanted to kill. The first real victim was supposed to be Luffy, but Izuku pushed him out the way looking to be killed himself. But Whitebeard and Ace jumped in front. They could run with the help of Shanks. On the Moby PP, I don't like that man, Dad, he attacked you and the other nice people. Kota said to Izuku, with Izuku just hugging him closer. Eri was already hugging his chest, not liking the sight of the war. Whitebeard was going to die, same for Ace. Nothing could be done about it. Izuku cried over the nearly dead body of his father. Why, you never cared before, so why did you now decide to protect me? I was ready to see my mother again. Gururara. It's not your time yet, son. Don't worry about your mother. I will keep her company until you lived a full life yourself. Then you can tell your mother all about your stories. A tear found its way out of Izuku's eye. Only if you stay around to listen as well. A tear escaped from Whitebeard's eyes himself. Marco. Get a pear from the kitchen for me. Marco did as he was told and got the fruit for his father. Here, Pops, Izuku. I want to give you 2 things. First is my weapon. Murakumajiri. I don't have much stuff for you, so I want you to take it. Second is my fruit. After I die it will go toward this fruit, please do eat it. Now my children, do not cry over my death. Grow and live your life you live. Yes, Pops. With that, Whitebeard breathed his final breath with a smile on his face. The pear in his hand turned into the Gura Gura no Mi, and Izuku stared at it. He heard the cry of his captain and knew what it meant. He had lost his brother. But that didn't mean the end for their story. Izuku got hold of Murakumajiri and walked over to Luffy, and they spoke. A little, both nodded and parted ways. Izuku walked over to Marco and went on his hands and knees. Marco, I beg of you. Train me for 2 years. Teach me how to become strong like our father. Please. Back in the present, Izuku landed on the ground with Murakumajiri in hand and saw the large robot made from Kuma aiming at Zoro and Sanji, who were arguing about who destroyed the other robot. Izuku shot forward and cut the large robot in half, alerting the two of them. Izuku! Both yelled out. Izuku smiled happily at the sight of his two friends. And he thought back. It was some time after Alabasta. The Straw Hats had been cornered and they had no way to get out until a woman landed on the ship. With that, their worried faces turned into a smile. The woman smiled herself now with a blush. Hina is glad to see Zuzu again. Sanji screamed out in anger. It's not fair. It was common for that to happen. Can your flirting hold off until we get out of this mess? Zoro said as he went to sit down and nap. Hina annoyed. But Hina agrees. Hina then started using her cage fruit and started making metal spikes. Izuku grabbed them as spears and started chucking them at the marine ships. Why does Midoriya get all the CC ladies? Mineta thought to himself as he bit in the chair with enough force to bite through steel. After done destroying the entire marine fleet, it went to normal. Zoro and Izuku to train with heavy weights. Whenever Izuku was cuddling with Hina or anyone else, Sanji yelled that such a brute should never defile a lady with his filthy touch. The 3 male members of the Straw Hats made their way to Luffy, their captain, who was in the middle of a large group. Luffy. The 3 of them called out, alerting their captain, as the 4 members now stood next to each other, greeting each other after their 2 years apart. They started making their way to the Thousand Sunny, where the rest of the crew was. Usopp, Nami, Robin, Frankie, Brook, Hina, and Chopper. He remembered all the fun times with his friends. The nights he spends cuddling with Robin while they read books together. The many hours Izuku and Nami spend in her map room. Nami would draw the maps while Izuku just enjoyed her company. The music Izuku and Brook made together. While Izuku couldn't play instruments that well, he was still a good singer. The time Izuku and Usopp spent fishing or using the cannons. While Izuku never used a cannon as he just threw the cannonballs. Chopper hiding behind Izuku whenever a scary moment happened. Izuku didn't really get scared of anything, and Chopper knew that Izuku would protect him as Izuku always protected his friends. Frankie and Izuku's time spent working on stuff together. Izuku would more be a heavy-duty machine for Frankie to use, but he still enjoyed all the time they spent together. Hina and Izuku's time watching the sky together. Even more super CC babes, what the hell? Mineta again thought. The girls didn't enjoy the sight as well. Izuku should be cuddling with them, not some other women. Izuku had everything he wanted, and finally, he got everything back. And this time they would never part ways. The Straw Hats stood on their ship. Nami and Robin had also found their way next to their shared boyfriend Izuku. Something Sanji could not stand, but even if Sanji loved a woman, he would never ruin their relationship, as if their heart would break, so would his. Let's get to moving, guy. Usopp yelled out, seeing a fleet of marine ships closing in quickly. Let me handle this, Izuku said as he placed his foot on the railing. Need Hina's help, Zuzu? Hina asked. No, I got this. Izuku put his fist behind, getting ready to swing it. The Straw Hats just assumed Izuku had gotten strong enough to make a punch that had enough air force to destroy around 8 marine warships. What they did not expect was a bubble to surround Izuku's arm. He then punched, cracking the air a couple of meters in front of him. With that, the warship started getting destroyed by a shockwave. The Straw Hats were in shock. What was that? Usopp and Chopper yelled, excited about the whole ordeal. That's Whitebeard's devil fruit, is it not? Robin asked. Izuku looked at her with a sad smile. Yeah, my old man gave it to me in his final moments. Same for this. Izuku said as he tapped his weapon. No time for sadness, we got a place to be, right, Captain? Izuku said with Luffy gaining his smile. Yeah, let's set sail to Fishmen Island, and with that, they went into a bubble and set sail underwater. Well, he is beyond strong god DMN. Setsuna said, only to receive a smack on her but from Ibra. Don't use the Lord's name in vain. Sorry, had to make the pun, woman. Setsuna just smirked and said. Next time you WHP me, do it harder. She ended it with a wink, causing the holy woman to hide and look away from the sin. Now what to do next? Truth said, wanting to hear suggestions from the theater. Option 1 Izuku, only male alive. Option 2 Izuku's fights. Option 3 Immortal Izuku. Option 4 your choice. Do let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to vote and comment, and have a plus ultra day. Izuku's battles. Now what do to next? Truth asked, wanting to hear suggestions from the theater. Which resulted in the students yelling out suggestions. Give me back my quirk. Endeavor yelled out sickly but loud, making the students silent. Yeah, no. But about your power. Here Izuku. Truth said, snapping his finger. Izuku all of a sudden felt a surge of power enter his system. It caused him to breathe in deeply. What is this feeling? That Izuku is holding more quirks through AFO+, Truth explained, with Izuku looking at his hand, which ignited shortly. That power is mine and it should be returned to me. Enji declared. Well, that now is all up to Izuku here, and to be honest, you haven't really gave a good impression on him. But you should stay quiet before I decided to see how much of a human body I can chance before it starts to affect the others. This threat caused him to stay silent for now. Enji didn't want to lose more than he had already lost. He had lost his quirk and his might. The two most important things to him. Without those two, how could he ever get out of All Might's shadow? But about what to watch, I did hear a nice suggestion. Midoriya's fights. Although I don't know who said it, but that doesn't matter. Everyone okay with watching Izuku here fights and see his thought progress whilst fighting? Truth said, causing the students to give an agreement. It won't be all of the battles Izuku has been in, as that would just be far too many. I see why Aizawa calls you a problem child, like DMN kid, you still in your first year. But first fight. Izuku and Ochako versus Bakugo and Ida. Aizawa looks at Truth with a face that screamed, finally someone understands. As the screen started playing. All Might reaches in two boxes, a black box that said villain and a white box that said hero. As he was reaching, he spoke. The names of the teams that are first to fight are these guys. He showed the two balls, showing it was Team D and A, which would be Midoriya and Uraraka as heroes and Ida and Bakugo as villains. It showed Midoriya and Bakugo first. Midoriya looked shocked. The same went for Bakugo, but it then showed Ida standing behind Bakugo and Ochako standing behind Izuku. Ochako looked shocked herself to be chosen to be first. Ida had his helmet on, but he sounded surprised as well. Team Midoriya will be the heroes while Team Bakugo will be the villains. Everyone else can head to the monitoring room to watch. Bakugo and Izuku made eye contact just before Bakugo walked off, but as they made eye contact, Bakugo growled. Bakugo and Ida made their way indoors, but just before entering, All Might spoke to them. The key to being successful in this challenge is to embody villainy. If things go too far, I will step in, understood? This made Bakugo only growl more. He really didn't want to be stopped. It then showed Ida and Bakugo in a room with a massive war missile. Ida walked up to it and gave it a small knock, hearing that it was empty. Bakugo, however, was deep in thought about Deku. He believed that Izuku had hidden his quirk this entire time to make a fool out of Bakugo. It didn't even matter, Bakugo would roast that DMN nerd for even thinking they were equal. Man, you didn't that one through at all. Kirishima said to his angry friend. F you mean, Bakugo responded. Well, I mean, why would he endure 14 years or so of bullies by hiding a quirk that would have stopped all of them in a second? Bakugo knew Kirishima was right, thus he could only SCK his teeth in response. It then showed Izuku and Ochako standing outside the building the villain team would enter. Ochako was making small talk about how All Might looked just as big as he does on TV, while Izuku was nearly having a mental breakdown. Izuku was brought back by a yell. You're sweating through your costume. Man, I can believe how skinny Izuku looked in that hero suit. It really did you dirty, my man. Kaminari said, which was fully true. In his hero suit, Izuku looked just as skinny as he did before he started training. Izuku looked quite buff even only after 10 months. Also, has anyone seen the manga Izuku? If you have compared that mofo to Izuku at the beginning, it's like night and day. Izuku spoke in a scared voice. It's just because we are up against Kaken, plus there is Ida too. Izuku then began listing a couple of things off to Achiko about how strong Bakugo was, but then fire came back in Izuku. I refuse to lose today. So it's a fated battle between rivals. This caused Izuku to become meek again and apologize. Alright, your time starts now. The hero team may enter. All Might announced. Izuku and Achiko enter through a window with Achiko commenting, now we are in. Izuku quickly warned to watch out for blind spots. While they started walking, Izuku was in thought about OFA while keeping an eye out. He was in thought about still not being able to wield OFA, as each time he did it was 100% or nothing. If he used it now, it would be too much force a person could withstand and it would instantly kill them. He had to rely on Achiko's zero gravity and his normal skill. He thought about all his notebooks and spoke in thought to himself. I can do this. Then he was quickly forced to dodge out the way from Bakugo, who jumped from around the corner. He blasted where Izuku stood, having Izuku dodge barely. But Izuku dodged and tackled Achiko out of the blast as well. He quickly checked on her while making sure Bakugo didn't continue to attack. Such a great dodge, Midori, Mina said as she shook her entire body in front of Izuku, who saw all the women's parts shake. Izuku quickly looked away as he blushed to an extreme amount. Exactly what Mina wanted. Achiko looked up and saw the half of Izuku's face mask was blown away. It then showed the rest of the students speaking with each other as they watched the match. It was Kirishima saying that sneak attacks aren't manly or heroic. He is playing the part, acting as a villain should. It then showed Bakugo again, who sprinted out the smoke his blast created. I won't hurt you so bad they have to stop the fight. Just close. He yelled as he readied a right hook, which Izuku caught easily and then proceeded to shoulder throw Bakugo to the floor hard enough to force the air from his lungs. Izuku spoke. I am not the same helpless, defenseless kid I used to be. From now on, Deku is the name of a hero. Just before he said this, Izuku thought to himself. I analyzed every amazing hero I could, even you. I wanted to learn all that I could. This declaration made Achiko gasp a little while it just said Bakugo off. Deku, you're shaking in your boots, you're so scared. But you want to fight me anyway. That is why I hate you. He first growled, then screamed. Kind of rude behavior, Ibra spoke to herself as she prayed that Bakugo would at least calm down as he entered 1B. Then you could hear Ida calling out to his teammate. Bakugo status report, where are you? Shut up and defend the weapon. Ida stood near the weapon with one hand on his hips. Are you forgetting what our mission is? Hello, he hung up on me. Ida sounded shocked at the actions of his teammate. Bakugo shot into action with a blast from his hands. Izuku noticed right away and told Uraraka to go ahead. Bakugo shot forward and landed a high kick aimed at Izuku's face. But Izuku was able to block it with his arm. While using the strong capture tape they received to wrap it around Bakugo's extended leg, he is using the capture tape. Bakugo thought while Izuku's mind was into his hero analysis book number 10 page 18 on 1A homeroom teacher Aizawa. But before Izuku could make use of any capture technique, he was forced to dodge as Bakugo released an explosive punch yet again. Do you really know all your pages of all your hero notes? Aizawa asked, short off. I know what is roughly written in each of them, but I can't remember each detail. Izuku said, sort of embarrassed about the whole thing, while the rest of the people were impressed by Izuku. Izuku went right back to analyzing the whole fight. Bakugo was suching this up now so that Izuku couldn't predict his movements. Bakugo then faced Izuku ready to fight. Izuku did the only thing he could if he wanted to win. He ran, forcing Bakugo to run after him. Izuku really needed a plan. Bakugo started making small explosions to heat his hands while searching every room. Izuku was in thought about the best possible winning strategy. He also thought back to his childhood. It wasn't going to be like those times. This time Izuku would fight back. Bakugo made his way to each floor and each room. While this was happening, it showed Uraraka in the bomb room alerting Izuku that she found the bomb, but she heard Ida monologuing to himself about embracing villainy. This caused the brown-haired girl to burst out in a laugh that she tried to hide, but Ida heard it. Uraraka, remember to keep your composure in real-life situations as it could cost you your life. Aizawa scolded her as it could end in death. Izuku knew where he was in regards to the bomb and got a boost in confidence that he could take down Bakugo. But Bakugo just came around the corner, alerting Izuku by a ping from his gauntlets. "I am all loaded up," Bakugo said as he tapped his gauntlet. He then got a sick smile on his face as he explained how it worked to Deku. The gauntlets would store excess sweat for him to release at a time of his choosing, creating a massive explosion. Bakugo pulled back the pin on his gauntlet as he monologued to Izuku. "It has been storing up my sweat for one monster blast." All Might saw what was about to happen and called out. "Don't do it, young Bakugo, it will kill him," Bakugo yelled back with a sick grin on his face. "He'll be fine as long as he dodges." Then he pulled the pin out, releasing a massive explosion all over the hallway. Izuku braced himself and jumped out the way. The blast still hit Izuku and shook the entire area. Even the students at the observation deck could feel tremors. Bakugo walked out of the smoke from his explosion and he truly looked like a villain. The more nitrosweat stored, the bigger the explosion. "Even if you give me everything you got, you will never beat me." Ida tried radioing his teammate but was ignored. Ochiko saw this as a great time to go for the bomb as Ida was distracted, and since All Might had not called to stop the match, it could only mean that Izuku was still okay. As Ochiko ran, Ida made his way toward her, but Ochiko touched herself with 5 fingers and it allowed her to float herself toward the bomb for a small time. Ida using his speed to reach the bomb before Ochiko could cause the girl to miss the bomb and landing on roll over the floor until she met the wall where she laid upside down. "I can keep this up, little hero, till time runs out. Oh, what will you do?" Ida didn't enjoy playing the villain or to goad his friends, but it was needed for this exercise. "It's alright, Ida, it was the goal of the exercise," Ochiko told her friend, who gave a nod in agreement. "You dodged the attack so you can still fight, can't you? Come and get me, Deku," Bakugo said as he signaled Deku to come closer. Deku spoke to Okak. "What is the situation?" While Izuku prioritized the mission, Bakugo becomes even more set off that Deku was ignoring him. "Young Bakugo, don't use those attacks indoors again. If you do, I will stop the match and your team will be the losers." I know as his teacher I should stop this match now, but young Izuku needs to see where he stands now. You really had to stop the match, not for Midoriya but to enforce that those dangerous attacks are not allowed to be used on classmates. Aizawa said with Recovery Girl nodding with anger at All Might. Although Izuku was a sweet kid, having him over each week to heal his broken bones was getting a bit old, like herself. "Fine, we will just fight hand to hand," Bakugo screamed as he used explosions to boost himself forward. Izuku prepared to counter Bakugo's right hook as he normally opens the fight with that, but Bakugo knew that Deku was counting on that, so he changed tactics. Bakugo used 2 explosions right in front of Deku, one to stop his momentum and blind Deku and one to alter his course and land at Deku's back. Izuku, now being blinded, had no idea Bakugo was behind him. Bakugo then used the 3rd explosion to stop his momentum again as he was right behind Deku, and then released the 4th explosion right on Deku's back, causing him to yell out in pain as he was forced forward. Although I do not agree with Bakugo's aggression, he does have incredible skill with his quirk. Yui said, rather impressed with how well Bakugo could use his quirk in both combat and movement. Back at the observatory, the students were talking about Bakugo again, at how skilled he was with his quirk and why Izuku wasn't using his quirk. Bakugo then called out his famous right hook that only he and Deku knew about. which connected with Deku's elbow and ribs. Bakugo then got hold of his arm and used a new set of explosions to position himself perfectly for maximum force as he used the same more Deku used on him in the beginning. The throw was so hard that Izuku bounced a little off the floor. Izuku thought again to himself that he stood no chance against Bakugo how he was now. He had to rely on OFA if he wanted to stand a chance at winning, but how could he do that while not killing his childhood best friend and classmate? Yeah, that is so true. If Izuku would use 100% it would be instant death for Bakugo, Tsuyu said, getting everyone to nod. Even Bakugo himself agreed but didn't say or show it. All Might back at the observatory thought he should end this, but something within himself stopped him from doing so. As he watched Izuku crawl away from Bakugo toward the edge of the building. The students and All Might believed it to just get away from the relentless attack Bakugo was laying down, but Izuku had come up with a strategy to win without hurting anyone important. Bakugo made his way to Izuku, who was catching his breath at the wall. Why won't your DMN quirk against me? You have been hiding your true power all this time. What's the deal, Deku? Did you believe you were better than me this entire time? Izuku was getting angry now himself. You have always been stronger than me, Kaken, I know that you are better than me. Izuku clenched his fist and yelled out in a fit of rage and determination. That is why I want to beat you, because you're amazing. Bakugo didn't hear a single thing as he just yelled. Come at me. The two young adults then jumped forward, each readying their attacks. Bakugo readied his open palm explosion strike. Izuku looked like he was preparing a straight right punch, but this time powered with OFA. However, as the fist came closer, Izuku used his other hand to block part of his face and redirected his punching arm from a straight jab to an uppercut. All Might then thought again. I can't stop this, not for me but himself. He needs to know he belongs at UA with the rest of the attacks came close, with Bakugo's hand now glowing, showing that he was about to release a massive attack. Izuku's own arm glowed as well as 100% of OFA filled the limb. As Bakugo's attack was right in front of Izuku's face, Izuku chanced the punch and aimed his fist upward. Uraraka now! Izuku yelled as his fist shot wind pressure forward. Bakugo's attack landed on Izuku's face, but as the wind force shot upward and broke through layer after layer of reinforced concrete, the wind force also shot out sideways, blowing Bakugo back a little. Uraraka, following the instruction of her green-haired friend, got hold of a pillar just as Ida was about to ask why she did that. The wind pressure tore through the building. Sorry, Ida. Improvised special move, the Comet Home Run. She calls out as she swings the concrete pillar and shoots out rubble toward Ida, who could only protect himself. As Achiko again made herself weightless and jumped over the gap Izuku made with OFA. Toward the bomb, while Ida couldn't move because of the stone pellets still bombarding him. Bakugo looked up in parts shock and fear. The fear part he wasn't even aware of. You were playing me this entire time, weren't you? You bstrd. Bakugo said to his classmate victim. Who responded in a pained and weak voice. I wasn't. My body just can't handle the backlash of my power yet. This was the only way I had any chance of winning. It showed Izuku's arm purple as he used too much OFA and his other arm black as it tanked to most of the explosion. Izuku then fell to the floor in pain. All Might thought to himself again. You did it, young Midoriya. The hero team wins. He announced, showing that the match was over. With robots quickly entering to bring the injured to Recovery Girl. That was intense, Kendo said, not having seen this yet. Yeah, but so manly, Tetsu said. That was a bit more intense than I could remember. Both Eri and Kota hoped that this would be awesome to see, but seeing their papa being beaten wasn't something they liked. They wanted to see Izuku stand tall and cool. Let's watch the next fight, okay? Izuku vs Shinso. Truth stated, with the two men in question sharing a look. Both remembered the fight as it changed something for both of them. Present Mike was hyping the audience for the one-on-one fights. On one side from the hero course, it's Izuku Midoriya. On the other side from general studies, it's Hitoshi Shinso. The way to win this is by kicking your opponent out or by making them say, I give up, huh? That monkey was going on about his pride, Shinso said with present mic then announcing to start. Izuku already knew how Shinso's quirk worked or at least the basics but that didn't matter. His anger as one of his friends was insulted boiled over and he spoke out. What did you just say? Was all Izuku did as he was now under the control of Shinso's quirk problem. Child, does keep in mind the quirks of your opponents so that it doesn't cost you your life. Aizawa again spoke to his friend. Shinso smiled as Izuku's friends became worried. I told him not to respond, Ojiro said as he before the match started informed Izuku about his moments with Shinso. What happened to Midoriya? The match just started and he's completely frozen. Present Mike yelled out, it then showed Present Mick's shocked face. Who would have imagined this? Will the bottom really overthrow the top? Shinso then spoke to Izuku, you're lucky that you've been blessed, Izuku Midoriya. Turn around and walk out of bounds like a good little hero. Izuku turned around and started walking. This caused a shock for everyone. It seemed as if Izuku was giving up. Izuku was yelling at himself in his mind. How could he have acted so foolish? He knew that this would happen and now he is going to lose the match without even lifting a finger. It shot back to the viewing area of 1A. It showed Ida moving his arms in straight lines. If you go out of bounds then you'll lose the match. He spoke out at a respected volume trying to warn his friends without causing any ear damage to his classmates. It then showed Aizawa fully wrapped in bandages reading some papers. If he can just overcome Shinso's brainwashing he would win the match as in the end physical Izuku outshines Shinso. It then showed Toshinori at Midoriya's area whisper yelling at his successor without being heard or seen. His face was filled with worry. Young Midoriya, you can't come over here. This made the theater burst out laughing. Inko had trouble controlling her giggles at her new boyfriend acted rather weird a lot of the time. Izuku's mind was clouded. He tried whatever he could. He screamed at his body to stop moving. He couldn't lose this quickly. He couldn't let down his mother or All Might like this. Something happened within his mind as he reached the edge. OFA charged up in his fingers and he could move them if only a little. Izuku moved 2 fingers charged with OFA and it created a large wind blast that was almost strong enough to push Shinso off his feet. Izuku had stopped just before he would be out of bounds. The show of strength and the sudden stop caused cheers to erupt in the stadium. Present Mike did what he did best and started hyping up the crowd more. In the 1A stands Ochiko and Ida showed relief as their friend was still in the fight. Ojiro fell back on his chair in relief. Izuku breathed in pain as he broke 2 of his fingers. Shinso was shocked at the sight. He had never seen this before. Someone snapped out of his brainwashing without help. What did you do? Shinso yelled out as Izuku slapped his good hand over his mouth making sure he would respond as Shinso repeated his question to Izuku in hopes of getting him under his control again. He didn't answer. Did he figure out my secret? Shinso thought to himself, say something. You can produce that much power just by moving your fingers. Shinso asked wanting Midoriya to slip up and respond. I'm jealous. Thanks to my quirk, I've been behind from the start. Someone like you who was born with the ideal quirk. Someone who can reach your goal. Couldn't understand. With this said Midoriya ran forward. Sorry for my words Midoriya. I didn't know. Shinso said to his friend. He couldn't believe what he lived through. Shinso also believed he had a hard life but he mostly got called a villain by most people, but Izuku was beaten and insulted far more than Shinso. It was a short run before reaching the still standing Shinso. In his mind, Midoriya wanted to respond saying it wasn't like that. That he did understand but he couldn't. He had to win, he had to prove that he was here. His arm with the broken fingers went against his chest as to not put force on his broken fingers. Izuku's other arm was placed on Shinso's shoulder. I am sorry Shinso but I can't lose, either. Shinso punched Izuku in the face but it did nothing. Izuku has had worse. He pushed forward. Shinso, now seeing the edge come closer and closer, punched Izuku's broken fingers, but this still wasn't enough to make Izuku stop. He gritted his teeth and pushed through the pain. It was enough for Shinso to be able to jump out the way, making Izuku stumble forward a little. DMN, that is sick. As they all heard the fingers respond the hit. Some of them had to deal with a broken arm or leg before, and they were truly shocked with how much pain Izuku could deal with. You got to be kidding. You get out. Shinso yelled as he pushed Izuku out with one hand on his face and the other on his shoulder. Izuku, through the pain, grabbed Shinso's shirt with his good arm and with his broken fingers grabbed Shinso's hand and did a shoulder toss. I can't lose. Izuku yelled in his mind as he slammed Shinso on the hard floor with all his might. Shinso bounced on the floor by the impact. This shocked everyone once again. All Might, Ochako, Ida, even Bakugo. The match began with the odds in Izuku's favor as he was a hero student that had survived the USJ. Then the match started and it started to look like Shinso was going to win, but Izuku got back in the race. And it started to look in his favor again, but Shinso again took control, and with a last-second twist, Midoriya tossed Shinso out the ring. Midnight announced that Shinso was out of bounds and that Izuku Midoriya had won the match. DMN again, far more intense than I can remember, this time Zero said. Papa looked so cool in this. He did like Haya and stuff. Eri said as he did the shoulder toss with nothing. Right there, nearly half the theater died because of cuteness overdose. Yeah, it was kind of heavy, so let's continue the rest of the fights a little later, shall we? This was agreed upon by everyone. Inko found it hard to watch her baby get injured so much. She still remembered watching the sports festival herself and how much she fainted. Bakugo didn't enjoy watching the fights. Not because it was Izuku fighting, but that he got injured a lot. While before it didn't matter, but now thinking back as his friend got injured over and over again didn't sit well with him. He also didn't like how bad he looked during the flashbacks. 4,456 words. I asked in my announcement about this chapter and they agreed to only do 2 fights for now as it was getting on the bigger side. Now for the next chapters, I am going to change how I normally do things because I have a massive .dmn list now. So I will just list all the options and see which ones have the most votes. If it's a tie, then I choose Dr. Stone, Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, Izuku, Kaido, Izuku, Dragon, Izuku, Joker, Izuku, Izuku, Sukuna, Izuku fights, Izuku, Watch Dogs, Quirkless Swordman, Izuku, Hammon User, Deku, Izuku, The Shield Hero, Aratufra, Izuku, Iron, Izuku, Izuku as Gojo, JJK, Izuku as Savitar, God of Speed, Sans, Izuku, Gunslinger, Izuku, Wildcat, Izuku, Jackal and Hyde, Izuku, Izuku, God of War, Scorpion, Izuku. Memes, Red Hood, Izuku, Izuku with Captain America's powers, loads of small stories in one chapter, Killua, Izuku, Avatar, Izuku, God Cook, Izuku, Titan, Izuku. Only Male, Izuku, Immortal, Izuku, Anos, Voltigode, Izuku, Power Ranger, Izuku, Undertale, Izuku, Singer, Izuku. Hope you enjoyed the chapter. Please vote and comment. I don't know God of War Kratos at all, so sorry if he is way OOC or something like that. But I am just doing this how I think it would be best. I hope you all still enjoy it. Everyone was talking with each other about the fights. They were getting even more excited at more they watched. Izuku was so inspiratino. All the odds were against him, yet he kept pushing forward. We have seen the happy moment and some sad ones. Now let's go fully random. Even I won't know what it will show. But that could mean it to be very good or bad. Truth said with Momo raising her hand. How do you mean that? Well, it could be a world where Izuku got a strong quirk from the beginning and never got bullied. He was cheered on alongside Bakugo and everything went well. Or everything went bad. Inko died, Bakugo was worse, All Might broke his dream, he saved Bakugo but never got a reward. So his one act of heroism was shot down. He would then go in a downward spiral and give in to villainy. This sank into everyone. Izuku could have been a villain like Shigaraki. The UA teachers who had read Izuku's notebooks thanked God that he still walked the path of a hero. Without a doubt, Izuku could bring hero society to its knees. The rest thought about their lives without Izuku and didn't like it. He might have not been the biggest influence in their worlds, but he did always bring a smile when he did show up. Now let's watch something. Truth said as he snapped his fingers, and it started. It showed Izuku, very sickly and skinny looking Izuku, worse than Chapter 1 Izuku. He was stumbling around an alleyway. He ran forward into a trash can and began looking desperately. He came up again, but this time he was holding two things. One was a half-eaten sandwich. The second was a half-rotten apple. It showed Izuku's face and you could see a smile on his face. He started eating. People had to GG at the sight of this. It was already sad to see Izuku's state right now. They wanted to help, but it was a show, so they could only hope it would improve. He was done eating and he walked out. He needed something to drink. It was 3 days since he had eaten something, so the sandwich and apple were godsends. But it had been 1 day since he had drunk something. It was a water bottle a sweet brown-haired girl had given him. It may have been nothing to her, but to Izuku it was as if God had sent an angel to him with a blessing. "Hey, that's Ochiko," Toru said. "Yeah, and Midori called her an angel. That is so cute," Mina said, making Izuku and Ochiko blush. Normally it was extremely hard to get food or water, but for Izuku it was harder. He had been robbed very often by a group of homeless. They were a gang of sorts that ran the area. And Izuku was taking their food. Izuku came out of the alley and saw the group of hobo, and they saw him. Which was dangerous. They had started to Izuku that if they saw him again they would crack his skull. The group of teenage men began running after the 9-year-old. Izuku ran away and kept running. How disgraceful of them. They should work in harmony and help those who are less fortunate, Ibra said, slightly sick at the sight of a group of teens chasing a 9-year-old child with the threat of bodily harm, until one moment he was in a forest. Izuku couldn't remember running far enough to enter a forest, as he was in the middle of a city. But he couldn't see anyone behind him, so he believed he was at least safe. He looked around and his eyes widened. He was in a forest, but not just any forest. It was filled with fruits. If Izuku thought normally, he knew that banana and apples didn't normally grow next to each other. But Izuku's hunger was too great. He grabbed what he could reach and started eating as much as he could. For the first time in a year, he was stuffed. But he was still thirsty. He walked into an area that was calling him without him realizing it. "Oh my God, that looks so appealing," Fuyumi and Rei said at the same time. It was true. Everyone agreed that the new forest where Izuku lived in looked amazing. He came across a pond Oswell and Izuku drank from it until he couldn't drink anymore. He nearly cried with how happy he was that he had a full stomach and wasn't thirsty anymore. He decided to stay in this area for a little while as he didn't want to give this up. He stayed on that spot for a month. After the month he started walking around again, wandering the area, but each time he walked he had always something he needed. He had drinks and fruit each time. He wandered for around 11 months now, being in the forest for 1 year, until he reached a mountain cave with a door. While Izuku was in the cave, his real body was in the hospital. For Izuku it seemed as if he ran into a forest, but what really happened was Izuku got hit by a truck. He was in a coma. When Izuku was brought in, the nurses checked his file to get hold of the boy's guardians. But both his parents were put under deceased. The nurse decided to call the contact info of his mother, which was Mitsuki Bakugo, who after hearing the news cried and made her way to her nephew. Mitsuki had the worst time when she arrived and saw her nephew. He looked to be on death's door. She felt so bad. Mitsuki had no idea Hisashi had died. She believed that he would come back from America and went to take care of Izuku. So when Masaru suggested a 2-month-long trip to grief and get away from everything, she accepted. When she came back she heard everything and she broke down. She had left her nephew all alone. She had to find him, she had to make sure Izuku was safe and healthy again. She searched all over Mustafa. Day in day out. She went by homeless shelters and alleyways. She went under the bridge after bridge, all in hopes of finding Izuku. She felt bad in the theater as well. She thought she had abandoned him yet again, but she tried making up for it, much like how she is making up now. She felt bad for leaving Izuku behind, but as she made eye contact with Izuku, he gave a look that just gave the feeling of forgiveness. Even if Izuku never blamed Mitsuki, he knew she needed to know he forgave her. When she came to the hospital, she did whatever she could to wake Izuku up. She came by each day when he was there. Each day she showed up and spoke with him. Spoke about her day and even hero news. Mitsuki was never that big of a hero fan. She liked them and had respect for them, but overall she didn't care for the details, but she knew Izuku loved them. So each day she would come by and read what happened and what hero did what, in hopes of making him wake up. Izuku, however, was wide awake. He entered the cave in hopes of finding shelter. The cave didn't look like a cave, it looks more like a hallway. He walked until he reached a door and opened it, and it showed a throne room. And he saw someone sitting on the throne in the room. He looks many as heck. Both Tetsu and Kirishima called out. As they looked at each other they laughed. The students had already guessed something like that was going to happen, but it was still amusing. How have you entered my mountain, boy? The old man spoke in a deep voice. I am sorry, sir. I just came here after running away from some scary people. I then saw this cave and believed it to be a good area for me to sleep. Izuku said, scared, as the man looked very scary. You can stay if you want. I don't mind, it would be good to have a guest. Izuku thanked the man. He was happy he didn't have to sleep outside anymore. It was just cold. Everyone got sad with this. They had so much they themselves gave up for granted without even realizing it. Much like the warm meals and comfy beds. Sir, where are we? Izuku asked, still not knowing where he had been for the last year. We are everywhere yet nowhere at the moment. We are in between here and there. This just confused Izuku, but the man was speaking the truth, as they were in a world in between everything. How did I get here? How did you get here? Is there a way to get out of here and go back? I am not sure, boy. All I know is that I came here myself after I got done killing all the gods. Izuku was shown a bed, a real bed. He thanked the man, and that night he slept like a baby. It was the best sleep he had for as long as he could remember. Izuku asked more about the man for the time he was there. Izuku quickly found that the man's name was called Kratos, and he was the god of war. He had killed all the other gods in revenge for them killing his son. It had been hundreds and hundreds of years since that day. Izuku was also instructed to start training his body to become healthier. Which he did. Izuku began working out his body. After what felt like around 10 years for Izuku's mind only grew his body 1 year. In the real world, Izuku had been in a coma for 1 year now. 1 year since his accident, and the same day he turned Mitsuki, Masaru, and Katsuki all sat in the hospital room. A small cake that Mitsuki had made herself, as all three of them sang a sad happy birthday. Katsuki had calmed down 2 years ago. When both boys were 7 when Inko had died. Bakugo felt bad about it, but it didn't sink in until the 2-month trip. He felt truly bad for his actions. He had to make it up, but couldn't. His old friend was in a coma. Bakugo grew angry. Not at the other Bakugo but at himself. Why the F did it take him so much longer to realize that he was a idiot for giving up his best friend? Izuku had stayed in the forest for 12 years so far. And Kratos made a deal with Izuku, as he had learned Izuku's dream. If Izuku could complete a set of exercises Kratos thought of, then Kratos would give Izuku his powers and weapons. Izuku did his best and he succeeded. It was hard and he barely passed, but he passed. Izuku made a BLD contract with Kratos that Izuku would receive the powers of Kratos. Izuku then spends 48 years learning how to use different types of weapons. The first 12 years were spent learning how to use the Blades of Chaos. The Blades of Chaos are a pair of chained blades that were fashioned by the Ares had the blades made for a servant who would prove worthy of his service. The blades were the first pair of chained blades that were used in his quest. He was very skilled with the two chained blades. He also found out something incredible. Because the weapons were made by the gods, they would not cut mortal flesh. But you would still feel the cut, but nothing would be cut. The second main weapon he would use a lot would be the Leviathan axe. It was a large two-handed axe. It had multiple runes inscribed into it, giving it more power and uses. Izuku first learned how to correctly throw it, and the new strength Izuku had been slowly getting helped him insanely. He also received the Guardian Shield from Kratos. It was a shield that stayed closed in on his gauntlet but could fold back out in its original size in an instant. With the years Izuku trained, he also got stronger and more durable each day. Until he stayed there for 60 years. His 5th year of being in his coma. He had all of Kratos' power and weapons and could use them. Kratos had sent Izuku back to his world with a wish of good luck in his body, while being his sickly old body would grow muscles at a far higher rate. And Izuku woke up out of his coma. It was 5 years after the accident and Izuku had turned 13 now. Mitsuki, Katsuki, and Masaru once again were singing Happy Birthday. Happy birthday to you. The three sang with Izuku waking up at the last word. This caused shock and happiness as Mitsuki rushed forward and hugged the boy. Let's hold it there for now. Truth said with Oz for most of the students, as someone with the title of God of War must be really strong, and they wanted to know what he could do. As for the training, you did see a little of it, but you had nothing to compare it to. We can always watch the rest later. Truth said with everyone agreeing reluctantly. Boom, 2 days 2 chapters, hell yeah, hope you all enjoyed. Have a plus ultra day. Dr. Stone, Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, Izuku, Kaido, Izuku, Dragon, Izuku, Joker, Izuku. Izuku, Sukuna, Izuku, Watch Dogs, Quirkless Swordman, Izuku, Hammond User, Deku, Izuku, The Shield Hero, Aratufra, Izuku, Iron, Izuku, Izuku as Gojo, JJK, Izuku as Savitar, God of Speed, Sans, Izuku, Gunslinger, Izuku, Wildcat, Izuku, Jackal and Hyde, Izuku, Scorpion, Izuku. Memes, Red Hood, Izuku, Izuku with Captain America's powers, loads of small stories in one chapter, Killua, Izuku, Avatar, Izuku, God Cook, Izuku, Titan, Izuku. Only Male, Izuku, Immortal, Izuku, Anos, Voltigode, Izuku, Power Ranger, Izuku, Undertale, Izuku, Singer, Izuku, Wild, Izuku, God, Izuku.